Good morning. I want to welcome you all to the Northeast Iowa Solar Energy Fair. My name is Carol Yates. I'm a program manager for the Center for Energy and Environmental Education. Thank you all for being here today. We hope this is an educational, informational way for you to get to talk directly to vendors who are in our area and hear about solar. Our first speaker is Mike Barnes, and Mike is the Hawkeye Community College Alternative Energy Systems Advisor, and he's going to be talking about solar energy potential for homes and businesses. His presentation will be about 20 minutes, just so you know, with a few minutes for questions after that. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much, Carol. Appreciate it. And good morning, everybody. Welcome here to this fabulous center. I'm so honored to be here and be able to present to you today. I've got a slideshow here. Again, it'll take about 20 minutes. And then usually, if I can get through it a little quicker and get to questions, that's usually what everybody wants to talk about. So I'll start off here with my first slide, solar in a wind state. Right? We're all here in Iowa, as Iowans, we're known for our big wind. But how do we promote solar in the state? A little background about myself. I started in business in 1985. I'm really a commercial electrician from Pennsylvania. I branched out in 1993, took my company into fiber, data, voice, and video. Then in 1995, I started building national projects for folks like AT&T, Unisys, Toys R Us, and others all across the country. In 2006 then, I branched into the PV solar field and began teaching at a college back east, Harrisburg Area Community College, located in central PA. Really liked hearing the sound of my own voice, but actually, and seeing people advance in this field, which was really cool. In 2010, I had all my electricians in my electrical business doing, we did a little over $17 million in sales in 2010, all solar, big projects. In 2011, I built my first 1 megawatt project back in Pennsylvania. We'll have a slide of that here in a little bit. 2013, I moved here to Iowa to teach Hawkeyes over at Hawkeye Community College and to also develop solar projects here in the Midwest. And in 2013, I also built my first solar project in Iowa. So why isn't solar more accepted in Iowa? When I see the two coasts, when I see what's happening on the east and west, we seem to be about 8 years behind, really. And I really see it as it's a general lack of education. So anytime there are fairs and stuff like this that go on where I'm able to do a little bit of education about solar, I jump at the chance because most people just don't know how this stuff works. They don't know how it works. They don't know how expensive it is. It seems to have long return on investment, a lot of the projects. How does it act in snow, which we have a lot of snow here, of course, and extreme cold. And how does it act with hail? And what about the fact that Iowans have a lot of cheap electricity right now? We'll address those questions here in the show. First off, how does solar work? Many folks don't realize that if you take two similar systems here, and what I did was I pulled this right off of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory and just did two systems, one in Jacksonville, Florida, one in Des Moines. Both of them 10 kilowatt systems, identical systems. You can see that the multiplier up here for sun hours, 12,983 versus 13,749. A lot of folks don't realize that we got plenty of sun here in Iowa. We tend to think of Florida as the sunshine state, but folks really don't recognize how much output we get here right in central Iowa. This is the slide most everybody likes to talk about. What's the return on investment whenever I present this? And I'm just going to go through this so that you can all understand how this works. If I bought a, in this case, a 10.2 kW system, which let me just outline that for you. That's about 40 solar panels covering an area of about 70 feet by 15 feet. So that's a big system now. But I'm using 10 kilowatts as a general multiplier here so we can all kind of back into the numbers that way. you can see that I should be paying at this point in time somewhere around $3.10 per watt, all in installed. You guys will have plenty of opportunity to talk to the vendors out here. I'm one of them. And pricing should come in somewhere about there at this point in time. And that price has been dropping significantly, hasn't it, Dale? Yes, he knows. So over time, when I got in this business in earnest in 2008, I was selling modules at $8 per watt. It's now $3.10 installed, okay? So when we take the system size, the gross cost of the system, and then I use an output multiplier. This is just found from the PV Watts website. If I just Google PV Watts, I can get that website. You go to the exact spot where you plan on putting in solar. There's how many kilowatt hours you're going to generate as a multiplier. We all kind of use this in the industry to come up with, well, this is how big the system is. That tells me how much power it can produce, but it doesn't tell me how much energy I'm going to produce. And energy is what we're selling back or using with the power company. So I really need to know how much energy I'm generating from my modules. So here you can see that system's going to produce 11,557 kilowatt hours per year at a current electrical rate around 8 cents. And I've seen rates anywhere from 8 to 12.5 cents here in the state, but I go on the low side here. And using an annual energy escalator of 5%, that can be adjusted here too on my Excel spreadsheet. And of course, a lot of folks don't know that solar degrades over time. So if I put up new solar panels over time, they lose some of their output, okay? So I have that built in here as well, a 0.991 duration, which basically means that, in summary, at the end of 25 years, this system is going to be producing approximately 80% of its original output. And you can see that here in the annual kilowatt hours produced. You see how that number gradually goes down over time. Okay? So on this gross number, I'm going to get a 30% federal tax credit, $9,486. I ask people at trade shows and so forth, you know, can you use in this case, almost a $10,000 federal tax credit in 1 year. You have to consider, you know, what is your time use of money? How much does money cost you? And can I absorb that tax credit back quickly? If I can absorb it back quickly, that would be one of my long-term or my short-term payback strategies is if I'm paying $10,000 in federal taxes and I get a tax credit, it's the same as cash. A lot of people don't understand that either. This tax credit is probably the cleanest tax credit that's been out there, and it's going to expire at the end of 2016. Okay? It's not going to expire. It's going to go from 30% to 10% in 2016. By the end of 2017, the tax credit will be phased out. So if I'm able to take that almost $10,000 federal tax credit, it brings my system price down to $22,100. I have an Iowa state incentive that is basically a portion of the federal incentive up to $5,000. In this case, I'm maxing out the $5,000 state tax credit. It brings me down to a net system cost of $17,134. So I take this data and I take it and extrapolate it over the years here. Here's my warranty years. This stuff is warranted to work for 25 years. Any of these vendors out here today, if you're getting quotes or what have you, should be a standard 25-year warranty on your systems. In that 25 years, here's how much energy you're going to produce annually. Here's your increasing electricity rate. Again, I have it increasing at 5% per year, and so you can see the electric rate going up. This is for commercial systems, modified accelerated cost recovery system, which is another thing we use for businesses, if there's any business people in here. But this is just a straight up, simple payback, residential kind of slide here. Over here I have my annual avoided electricity. So I'm taking the kilowatt hours produced times the electricity rate, gives me my annual avoided electricity. So I go out and I get a loan for this number, and I start to pay that back. Well, you can see my loan amount versus my avoided electricity ends up being in the first year, my annual net cash flow is minus. It actually cost me $104 to do that system for the first year. Now I have another category over here, cumulative net cash. So I'm kind of taking that cash, whether it's positive or negative, and accumulating it in that column. You can see that working here. The actual solar system's value. I asked my students at Hawkeye, what would you pay for a house that has a solar system on it versus the house beside it that doesn't? I'll let them think about that for a little bit. Would you pay a couple of years of avoided electricity cost? Most of them say, yeah, we might pay like 20 years. Well, you wouldn't pay 20 years of avoided electricity. What about 10 years? If I knew that this house with solar panels on it was avoiding $1,000 a year of electricity, I might pay 10 times more for that house, more than the house beside it that does not have solar panels. So when you think about that number I come up with here as the solar system's value. I'm basically taking 10 times the annual energy savings and saying that's what it's valued at if somebody just comes right in off the street and buys your home. Now, if I take this accumulating value, the gain from the investment, our annual cost of the investment, I'm putting some maintenance expense in here too, even though solar to a large extent doesn't have maintenance except for getting the snow off of them, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I come up with a return on investment of 8, 9, 10%. Actually, you can see here the 10-year return on investment is over 10%. Now, we have a saying in this business, who buys solar? People that can do math. Okay, because this investment, if you look at it, this investment, where can you get 10.54%? That you control. See, this is the thing. A lot of folks, we're used to buying stuff that depreciates like crazy, right? Automobiles, clothing that's basically worthless after you buy it kind of stuff. But with solar, you're actually buying an item that is going to appreciate in value. Because this cost of electricity keeps going up, the degradation from your solar is going down not as quickly as the price of electricity is going up. So it continues to increase in value and continues to produce a commodity. And that's really the bottom line to why solar is really such a cool thing here. Any questions on this slide? I'm going to push on here and just get through the rest of this. What I've noticed from being here for 3 years is that snow sticks to these modules. Unlike where I am out east, it doesn't get as bitterly cold out there as it does here. I have noticed that in the stuff we have set up at Hawkeye and the systems I've built around here, you have to get the snow off. And you have to create a tilt angle. The higher the tilt angle you can create, the better off you're going to be, because I can rake that snow off a little bit easier, and you want to get it off right away, because as you all know, if it just melts a little bit and then freezes overnight, it's stuck on there like glue, okay? So you want your modules to be able to produce electricity. A lot of folks don't realize, too, that they produce the most when it's cold out. So when it snows, you want to get that snow off. That's kind of that's the flip side of this coin. There's a little bit of maintenance required in getting the snow off so that they can produce electricity. A lot of folks ask me at these shows about hail. Most of the modules we're using are designed to withstand 80-mile-per-hour golf ball size hail. Now I tell folks too, I've got a solar panel in my shop that has a golf ball in it. So I know it doesn't withstand golf balls, right? But it will withstand golf ball size hail. And you can crush them. If you're bringing a forklift in and unloading them from a tractor trailer, you can smash the frames of them and bust the tempered glass that's on the surface of them. But they are, I've got, and the other vendors out there, I have a couple out there, go up, bang on them, whatever you need to do. The first display I ever made, I had kids putting. I had a putting green set up, and I had them made of solar modules. So you could see, kids were standing on them, jumping on them, and not breaking the glass. Okay, so what about cheap electricity now? Isn't electricity cheap now, cheap enough now? I pulled this right off of the U.S. Energy Information Administration. You can see here they've got an average retail price for residential of $7.71, but we all know that's going up, right? Over here you can see, from November of 2014, residential rate $12.46 roughly, commercial $10.55 cents, industrial 6.67 cents, and climbing. Okay, so this is a slide of the biggest array that I built back in PA. This is a 1 megawatt array and what that looks like. To put that in kind of perspective for you, it's on the south side of a hill, and this is at it's Masonic Village, which is a big commercial retirement center, and this is producing about a third of the electricity for Masonic Village. But what I wanted to point out with this slide is, and I'm glad Eagle Point is here today, July 11th last year, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of solar energy, essentially saying that, folks that were doing a third party, what's called a power purchase agreement, are able to sell kilowatt hours to municipalities. This has kind of prompted the simple solar display that you see out here that we're going to hear about a little bit more later. But that third-party ownership has really been key to advancing solar in Iowa in a big way, because you're going to see a lot of commercial establishments, especially those that can't take advantage of that federal tax credit, actually come in and start to build projects now because of this Supreme Court ruling. I'm not going to get into the depth of this, but I have a slide here, and it's running out of my booth if you all want to take a little look later. But this is how a third-party power purchase agreement works, where you've got an actual third party that owns the solar array that sells the power back. Large systems are a lot cheaper. Check this out. A larger system, this is a massive system, right? Big numbers down here. This is a 2.44 megawatt system, but look how cheaply they can be built. This is actually from a bid form for one of my projects out east. They're down to $1.76 or so to actually get constructed. So with all the positives, what are we fighting against? In my world, it's education. These are all slides from my program out at Hawkeye. Students building solar, putting up their own roofs, figuring out the tilt angle, how to work together. And then I also go out to the local high schools here, do presentations like I'm doing today. I take a few solar panels with me. I have the students handle them. I have them hold them over their head, see how heavy they are. We walk outside. We do some outside testing. I have them put on arc flash clothing here too to see what it would be like to work on hot electrical panels, how that feels. It gets warm in that suit pretty quickly. We measure voltage in those demonstrations. We take them outside. I have the students actually use meters, measure the voltage to see how this stuff works. It's a no-brainer science, and a lot of people don't recognize how simple it is. It really is very, very simple. The colder it is, the better they produce. I give them as a little factoid they can take back with them to tell their folks. And so, in conclusion, solar works. There's my contact information. I want to just do one other thing here. I want to get to two more resources that you can use. I have my wife and I own our own company, Cedar Valley Energy, which you can find right here on Facebook. All my pictures and that sort of stuff are up here. I do educational stuff here too, like when I'm prepping students for the NABCEP exam. I've got links to the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, which we are able to give at Hawkeye Community College. I've trained over 300 students in NABCEP to be able to take and pass the NABCEP entry-level exam. So you can find more information here on Facebook. And I have a website. It's kind of funny, my CV Energy website, Cedar Valley Energy website, it doesn't get nearly as many hits as Facebook. That's kind of wacky, isn't it? When I do a little search, my Facebook page pops up first. I don't know if that's like a new trend or what here. But I also have, this could be really helpful too. If you go to Vimeo, V-I-M-E-O, and you just type in Mike Barnes Solar, it's going to pop up. I have all of my classes online here. Now, they are like long and somewhat boring, and I'm going to pare those down. But if you really wanted to do a deep dive into solar, you can go to the Vimeo website and just take a look at the videos. Some of them I have produced that are a little bit shorter and quicker than others. Like we can go here, this one on power versus energy. It's like a standard thing. I've been so used to talking to students about it over and over and over again. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to make a video to just play the video, right? So I started doing that. That's like a easy 8-minute video for students to be able to understand power versus energy and understanding that difference. So there's a couple resources for you. And so now I want to just, if I have any time at all, I want to just kind of open this up to any questions. Yes? How many?
I say 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
I think you made the comment that the third-party provider would be more efficient. Did I understand that right? For economies of scale and
Yeah, in a third-party power purchase agreement, the systems are larger, and because of that, the cost is cheaper. I mean, there's an amazing price difference the larger you get. Yes, yep. Great question. Thank you. Sir.
Could you comment on what's going on in Europe and how they're developing it?
Yeah, so Germany is way ahead of us in solar, right? They have 50% of the world's solar right now. Probably the most interesting development I've seen here, and this has been in the last 6 months or so, and this is really cool, and I'll leave with this, is California kind of leads the way in solar, right? And that California has developed what's called Rule 21, for those of you who are real solar aficionados in here. Rule 21 says that smart inverters coming out after this year, all inverters coming out after this year in California, they got to be smart inverters. Now what that means is the inverters that are inverting the DC electricity to AC electricity have to actually be able to talk to the grid. And they got to be able to do power factor correction and a lot of other science stuff that maybe you guys don't want to even hear about this morning, because I'm trying to keep this a little broader. But that is some really cool technology in being able to use the smart grid to give information to the solar inverters, because this is around to stay. I will tell you that. Solar is here to stay.